Welcome to the Mentoring Moments, Empowering Leaders to Mentor Our Future podcast. I am Dr. Rob Wadawa and believe that through teacher and leader mentorship, we can impact our future through our influences on students. As much as we believe in the power and impact of mentorship, many shy away from this rewarding work. The goal of these episodes is to lean into the work with teachers and leaders, hear their stories, and have fun with the mentoring process.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring Moments. I'm sitting here with a good friend and colleague, Mr. Brenden Cusack, and I'm going to get a great introduction for him. So, what does it take to lead a school, not just from the principal's office, but from the sidelines of the big game, the front row of the school play, and the heart of the community? Meet Brenden Cusack, Huntington's new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and a man who spent the last 9 years as the soul of Huntington High School. From his start as an AP literature and theater teacher to his deep belief in restorative practices and leadership training at Harvard, Brendan's 30-year career is a masterclass in being a visible, present, and transformative leader. He's mentored over a dozen future administrators, including myself, launched countless new programs, and is known above all else as the most approachable guy in the district. Today, we're talking about building legacy through presence, why curriculum and connection are inseparable, and of course, rather mentor a leader who's all heart but no organization, or who's all data but no empathy. Welcome, Brendan. Thanks so much, and how's it going?
Thank you, and that's quite an introduction. I don't know that anybody's ever said all of that at once about me. Thank you. That was nice. Can we end it now?
You know,
It's good.
you're a very humble person, and I know I've known you now for a while, it's important that you know that you're a good guy and you're well loved by a lot of people here at Huntington. So
I appreciate it. It's a
you deserve that great entrance. So
great
we'll
place to
dive.
be.
Yeah, yeah. So awesome. So we'll dive right into our first kind of our philosophy of visible leadership. So you're famously present at games and plays and ceremonies and a lot of different things for students and for teachers. Beyond just showing up, how do you turn those moments into genuine leadership capital that builds trust with students and teachers?
I think that's a great question, and yeah, I do enjoy being a part of those things. I think more important than being visible in the public sphere is being accessible when nobody else is around or available. There are plenty of times where it's great to be at public events, games, things like that. I cheer like a lunatic. I think people truly think there's something wrong with me when it comes down to games. That's the wrestling dad in me. And that's all well and good and that's fun. But when, at 9 o'clock at night, somebody has a really important question and doesn't know what to do, and the phone rings, or 11 o'clock, or 2 o'clock in the morning. These things do happen. Um, I feel like that type of visibility and accessibility is what truly builds that type of trust. And it's a 24, our jobs, are 24/7. They don't stop. Um, and so I think being accessible is part of that visible leadership. But it certainly doesn't hurt to scream like a maniac on the sidelines. And I think something that you do on the regular, that I've always believed in it when I was a building principal, is being out in front every day, whether, whatever the weather may be, for parents and faculty and kids to see, and also to be able to interact with. If something's going on, and they see you every single day without fail,
Right.
they know where to go. There are plenty of times where the day would be just about to start, and somebody pulls up and says, "I really need to talk to you right now," and it's a parent, and there is no other, your calendar becomes empty for that person because it's a priority. So I guess that's how you really do build that trust from my perspective.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I say to people regularly, it's the small things that make a big difference. Being present and being in that space. I had a friend that retired superintendent had said, I get a lot more done and get more accomplished on the sidelines than I do in front of my computer. And having that interaction with people, right, like you said, you have a parent that pulls up to you in the car and they start asking you a question. It could have been a 5-page email, but it was taken care of immediately in the parking lot. So I mean that's huge. And like you said, being visible, that builds that trust. Even every morning just waving, parents see you. That's huge. So yeah. So as you've moved from your career, you were teaching AP English and directing plays for many years, and now you're sitting at a high level administrative position. So is there, or how does, also use how does that artist's mindset kind of still influence how you lead curriculum and instruction today?
That's an incredible question. I sometimes I feel like it doesn't, you get bogged down in data and paperwork and it doesn't feel terribly creative. But aside from like doodling in meetings and whatnot, I think that for me, the the creative juices get flowing when you talk to people and when you have particularly a group of people who don't necessarily agree about something. That in itself, that type of, verbal judo, if you will, or that, kind of puzzle to try to figure out on the fly without any real script, that is creativity, in real time for me. And I think there is a lot of art to that. I don't know that everybody has all of the skills that you need to be able to bring people together. But and at any given moment, I might not either. But trying to figure that out in real time with no, guide rails, that is a creative exercise for me for sure. And when it works well and you get to the end of whatever, the issue may be, and people do kind of come to some middle ground, or we make progress, or something really good comes out of something that could have been negative. To me, that's artwork, that's a piece of something that didn't exist before. So, uh,
Yeah, I agree 100%. You shared a story today about that artistry of somebody coming in and not agreeing with the situation, and the art of taking that and saying, "Wow, well, this challenge really is an opportunity for us to become better," and that's an art, to be able to have that conversation. And I also think being the person that's directed plays, you're bringing a lot of different people together for a singular purpose, and that's what we do as leaders every day. And it's times that there's parents that we have to bring together. There's times we have to bring teachers together, and there's times we got to bring everybody together. And there's an art to that. So yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And it's super important to have those relationships with all the people, and value all of the things, the voices that are out there. Because I often say the voice that tends to be the most distracting, or the voice that you believe to be the one that is the most difficult, is usually the one that will help you the most too.
it can be, yeah.
Yeah, it helps to navigate and not have to run into the big problems that you might not foresee. So it's great. So sometimes we're building systems and we have sustainable change in our world of education. So you've personally mentored probably over a dozen administrators over your time. What's the first piece of advice that you usually give to a brand new principal or director, or whoever, it's a principal, about how to manage their time between the paperwork and the people?
Yeah, that's very hard. I don't know that I've given the greatest advice with that because it's still a challenge for me. There's simply so much to do. Um, I guess my best advice has been to find your team and value them truly and in every way possible because you can't possibly do it by yourself. There aren't enough hours in the days, there aren't enough days in the year, and so on. It's an impossible task if you try to isolate and do it on your own. So I'd say that's probably the number one piece of advice that I've I've tried to provide to people is, you know, uh, everyone goes into leadership for different reasons, right? I think you and I probably have a pretty similar philosophy of,
Yeah.
service leadership and really trying to, build and grow with the position and grow with the people that you're working with, and take feedback and make yourself and the organization better. That's, I think, a great way to approach it. But let's face it, there are some people who go into leadership for the wrong reasons. They want control. They want to, impose will or philosophy or whatever it is, upon something rather than to grow from within. Not that we have anybody like that in our district, of course. I would never say that, but you come across people over the years,
Of
and
course. Of course.
you know, so that is when a team mindset goes right out the window, and you can see very quickly that, um, it's just not going to work that way. And so my advice has always been build your team, value your team, and that will help you to manage your time because you can rely on other people, and they may not do it exactly the same way as you would do it yourself. And you got to get over that. You
Right.
can't, there are no clones. That's not what it's about. It's about building capacity, not building replicas of yourself. And that, that might be, I don't know that I've ever said it that way. I better write it down. It sounded pretty good. But it's,
Yeah.
it's,
It's
that's
it's
the idea, the message, I guess.
yeah. No, and like I said in my conference, a good friend of mine says all the time, people over paper, so, getting out there, being visible, like we talked about earlier, that makes a huge difference and that builds capacity and going to people and try to give some of your leadership away too, so going to somebody and say, hey, I need some help on this. Can you help me? Maybe you can form a committee. And now all of a sudden you're sustaining yourself and you're leaving a legacy too, because those people are gonna be like, wow, he's trusting me to do this, and that's amazing, and they feel good. So that's exactly what like you said, you and I are very similar philosophically speaking, and what we believe leaders are all about. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done here. I think it's your jam because I know that you lit up when you talk about this. So Huntington has been a leader in restorative practices for many, many years. Is there a story that you could share that you've kind of seen these practice seem to kind of transform specific situation, and then if you've had an experience where you had to kind of sell something to the teacher that was like, I don't think I want to do this thing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that is definitely, as you said, my jam. Restorative practices dates back 10 years now in our district, and been fortunate. It really kind of fell in my lap to start with. And as a brand new principal, you kind of look at the whole and say, where do you even start? This is a great place. How do you start to, think about ways to leave your mark or make things even better. And restorative practices is definitely a way that I think we've grown a lot, and I've grown also. I started my administrative career as a dean of, discipline. And
Right.
so I went from, as you said, producing plays and teaching English and theater and all this great stuff and being a class advisor, and it was really fun, and kids want to be in your class, and then immediately starting to suspend kids and have to deal with, you know,
What happened to the cool teacher?
behavior. Yeah, right. All of a sudden I was the jerk and and have to deal with all this stuff. And so that was real culture shock for the first, maybe 6 months of that job. And I started to grow into that and learned that, now my office is my classroom, and we really can have some rich conversations and there can be some genuine change. Only problem is, after all that was said and done, I could have a great connection with that kid and the parents, and we have this lovely, moment, and then you're still suspended, and I'll see you in a week or whatever, and then, you'll be fixed. Never really liked that. And so when we had the opportunity to, by way of a grant, start to work with restorative practices, we were really lucky. I was really lucky to be able to kind of really connect our school to that. And so over the last 10 years, we've you know, used our local town and their youth court, and we've built a program that is kind of a model for others, and it's expanded to the middle school, and now we have advisories that are based on community circles, and it's been great. So we've managed to share this with a lot of other districts across the state, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. I'd say one of the most memorable stories, I guess you could say, from this comes very early on, and I actually videoed the student and her mom after the fact as like a testimonial,
Yeah.
and we had a young lady who she really didn't have a great opinion of herself or her academics. She had an IEP, and that was to her, she felt that was a real negative thing at the time, and she just didn't thrive academically, and she, had issues with her peers and whatnot, and got herself into some trouble related to that. And we went ahead with our youth court and restorative practices. And she found a whole new set of kids. Like youth court is something where peers, like your age group peers from
Right, right.
other districts serve as a jury and a judge and whatnot. And they'll put together, sanctions that might include community service, that you might be working with other kids and things like that.
Right.
She found a whole new friend group,
Wow.
became a part of youth court, and served on juries and whatnot. And the very next year, she enrolled in an AP psychology course. Now, this is a kid who had been failing a lot of courses.
Right.
Immediately said, "No, you know what? I can do this," and took AP Psych and a number of other classes, graduated with absolutely no issues, went on to, I believe, University at Buffalo to study to be a social worker. Like this was life-changing. Mom said from that moment, she was a different person. The
Wow.
student herself said the same. I realized that you weren't mad at me when I got in trouble, that you still believed in me. And that is huge. And I think that is something that can translate not just to kids, but to teachers, to administrators. Like we all need that sometimes where, we're all going to make a mistake here and there. And if there is a restorative approach to it, we all get better. And if
Yeah.
it's not that, what happens? Nothing good. If you make a
No.
mistake and you get killed over it, then that's never going to help the organization going forward.
No, I know the restorative practices. In my previous district, we did mostly at the elementary. To see how it works here is amazing, and it really is life changing for I think for everyone. And as a new person to the district, to sit in a room with the brand new teachers, with one of the principals that was running it, to kind of like unpack yourself with all of the new people was really nice too. So I know that it's been done in faculty meetings and things like that. I almost wonder if it should be integrated, not every month, but something like maybe once a quarter for the teachers to kind of like rebuild. It's kind of like those programs that you see, that BOCES programs has, walk to the line or something like that, where kids are struggling with certain things,
Mm.
challenge day or something like that. So I think it's tremendously powerful when you start to see your adults that are around you as humans, and you see your leaders as humans, because oftentimes we look at the adults in the building, no matter how big the kids are, the kids still look at us like giants, you know,
Yeah.
so for us to kind of like take a step down and be like, yes, I'm a human too. They're like, oh, that's interesting, so
Yeah.
yeah, so
And teachers, I think, could benefit from that also. I think it's a great idea because you could be working, within one hallway from somebody for a decade and not truly know a whole lot about them, especially at a high school where everybody's departmentalized and whatnot. If there were opportunities for people to kind of connect on a deeper level, that would probably be a great thing.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to move to some, you talked a little bit about some tactical things too. So let's talk about tactical things with new leaders. So what's kind of the advice that you might give a new principal or even, as you were a new assistant superintendent, like what were some of the things that you give advice to yourself of like what the first 90 days or so, like I know that sometimes people like you need a 100-day plan, but like the first 3 months, like what would you tell a new administrator, like, hey, these are the things you probably want to do to build the kind of approachable reputation that you have right now?
Yeah, I think we always start with getting to know the people and the systems and it depends on the organization. I think it can take a long time to figure out who's doing what and who really does what. Sometimes there are the people that are supposed to, and then you know how to circumvent and or
Yeah.
people know how to circumvent you. Maybe the more appropriate way to put it. And so to try to figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen, I think with any new leader coming into any position, and this is the case for me, probably for you, for everybody, is, there'll be a few people who test the waters and will ask you a question that they absolutely know the answer to, but they want to try to get a different answer because that's their goal. I don't think that's unique to schools or anything like that. I think it just is. And so that's always something that I would sort of lead with is, keep your ears open, but, don't really have like rabbit ears about it. Like you don't have to take it all in and believe everything that you hear. Just kind of get the feel for who everyone is and what the message is and come to your own conclusions over time. No, you don't need to rush to any conclusions. If you want advice about this person or this thing, I will gladly share that with you. Otherwise, maybe just take the time to get a feel for it before taking someone else's opinion. It takes time to develop your own opinions, and good information is good information, but I've said to many times, don't take my word for it. You'll see for yourself how you feel about this particular situation, and then we can talk further about it. So I think
Yeah.
that's something that I've had to remember. When you go from being in one role for 9 years, and this is my second year as assistant superintendent, it's still new. Like there's still things that I may not know or might not be aware of, and I'm open to that. I think you have to draw a line because if you don't know anything, or if you seem like you don't know anything, people won't trust
Right.
you. And that's problematic too. But being honest about what you don't know, as long as it's
Yes.
finite and not, so
Yes.
much that like it doesn't make sense to be doing that job, because that can happen, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. Yeah.
it- you know, being honest and saying, "Oh, I need to learn more about that." I think that's an important piece. So, I guess to summarize, kind of, giving yourself the time to get the lay of the land, learn the people, the systems, the networks, everybody's, I guess their, agendas, for lack of a better term, and coming
Yeah.
to conclusions over time.
Yeah, I love your visual of rabbit ears. Darren Peppard, who's a inspirational speaker and he's an author and a great guy. He was on I think my first episode, and we talked about what we call warning bell people. They're the people like that come right to your office. You're the brand new administrator,
Yes.
and they're like, and
Right.
then you're there now with these rabbit ears. You're thinking, I got to listen to this person,
Yeah.
and you're ready to jump on taking action steps. And he shared a story that a principal had that kind of happen. Principal changed the entire like lunch duty schedule for something, and was like. Everybody in the rest of the building's like, why did you do that? Like, that was the worst thing ever. So it's, don't always move on something. It's okay to say, like, you know what? Can I have a little bit of time to let this marinate before we jump in on this? So. All
I
right,
think
cool.
people
So
respect that approach, and I do remember that I listened to that episode, and maybe that's why it was kind of top of mind. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, he's a great guy. He'd be a great speaker for the school in one day. Cool. So let's transition. We're getting towards looks like about 25 minutes or so. Rapid fire questions here. So these you got ahead of time. So I know you were talking a little bit before. You're like, oh, I'm not sure about this one, but we'll have some fun anyway.
All right.
So Would you rather mentor a leader who's all heart but no organization, or one who's all data but no empathy?
I think probably the the most reasonable answer would be to go with someone who's all heart because you can teach them organization. But I will go with the opposite answer to that because somebody who's really organized, I feel like maybe I might have a shot at showing them in our organization where the heart is, and that's
Mhm.
with the kids, you know. So you can't possibly really hear and know and learn about somebody's story without feeling something. And I feel like over the years I've been able to tap into that here a little bit. Organization, you know, I think with the vast amount of different things that we have to deal with, that can actually be harder to tackle sometimes. I grapple with that myself. You know, the heart piece is like, okay, let's go knock on this student's door and say hello. Like I'm gonna show you where they're coming from, you know. And I've been in that position before. Let's say working with a teacher who, you know, is sort of, for lack of a better term, hell bent on failing somebody for whatever reason it is, and then when they get to know the story, like there's a little movement, you know.
Right.
And that's a very organized kind of person. Like, this is the letter of the law. I am going to stick with, you know, this is the policy, this is the practice, this is my grade book. And when you say, well, this is the child, like, and this is the story, sometimes you can get some movement there too. And I like that challenge also. So I think either one, we probably wouldn't necessarily want to hire somebody who has all of one and not the other. We kind of want
Right.
to find somebody with both, but if 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 faced with that, you know, that either or, that's the way I would go with it.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So, what's the most well-intentioned but ineffective piece of leadership advice that you were given early on? And how would you change it now?
So I think for this one, I go back to one of like our, you know, my courses in school administration early on, where it was pretty much presented that people will bring their needs to you, and your organization will bring needs as well. And a lot of times, the needs of the individual are in conflict with the needs of the organization. So, for
Right.
instance, somebody says, you know, I have to leave every Friday at such and such a time because I have, you know, A, B, and C to do or whatever.
Right. Right.
That can harm the organization, right?
Right.
Because you know have an issue that is a conflict. So I
Right.
guess what I've learned over time, um, in the context of that type of scenario, is the power
Uh-huh.
of the question why. Why does this need to happen? I've learned the hard way in some cases where I did not ask that question and said, no, 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 we have to do this way because, blah, 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 before asking that question why, and then learning that there is a really good reason why this person needs whatever it is they're asking for. And you know, you can almost have some egg on your face if you don't ask that question why in advance. If you ask the question why and the answer's not great, then you kind of know what to do.
Right.
So that's how I would sort of turn that advice on its head. The way it was presented was it's kind of either or, but what's in the middle is the question why.
Yeah. I always say we live in gray. The people, like you said before, you have some black and white people. I got to follow the data. I got to follow the policy. But no, no, no. We live in gray. And that's the way it goes. So
Especially in education, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
100%, 100%. All right, last one here. So, are you as an English teacher and a coach, right? So, would you rather grade the essay or coach the play?
well, I definitely don't like grading papers. I having done plenty of that, that was never my favorite thing. I'd always prefer to coach the play. It's in real time. You know, it's happening side by side sometimes when you're coaching. An essay is done in isolation. Like if you're grading the paper after the fact, it's already done, you know? I mean,
Right,
yes, there's revisions and I believe in the writing process as an English teacher and whatnot, um, but it's there. it's separate from the act itself.
Right.
You're coming away from it, and you're making corrections, and then you're going back. Whereas coaching, I think, happens with somebody more. And so, yeah, I coached football with little kids for a while, and that was probably one of the greatest experiences in my educational career is coaching, 10-year-old football team.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So let's say a mic drop closer here. So finish this sentence. Ready? So true school leadership isn't about managing a building, it's about dot dot dot.
getting to know and loving the people you work with.
And I want to add that I love that you use the word love because John Maxwell talks about that all the time. You have to like love your people. And it's something that I think often leaders are shying away from. They like you said before, we have to be the boss. And it's like, you can't be if you can't be the boss if you love your people, but it's true. Getting in there, knowing your people, caring for them, and loving them is tremendous. So as we're just about wrapping up, is there anything last final words you have for our audience here? Anything, any pieces of advice, any thoughts?
I think just to remember that this really can be fun, We forget about that sometimes. And this is a great, I think what you're doing is awesome, that you're really delving into the finer points of leadership and mentorship and, the nuts and bolts of what makes all of that tick. I think it's really cool, and I'm just grateful to have been a part of it today.
Thank
Um,
you.
this is part of the fun part, this
Yes,
type of
yes.
interaction and this setting is really cool. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Brendan. Brendan, it's funny because you use the word fun, and I think I was driving in the other day, and I was talking with somebody. I'm like, no, the job is fun. There's fun things about it, even when there's challenges. And I always say like, if there's a challenge and you go to people with that challenge and you bring your team together, it's like, all right, we got to face this challenge. Like you said, now we're coaching, we're figuring it out, and we work the problem. And that's fun. And like I had some teachers the other day where they were like, this is like a big headache. And I'm like, no, this is great. We're working through some curriculum. We're working through some ideas, and it was productive. And but they could see the excitement. So when they see the excitement coming from their leader, they get excited. So,
Definitely. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So
so yeah. So thank you so much, Brendan, for being a guest on Mentoring Moments, and we'll talk soon. Right? Thank you.
thanks a lot.